being here. We've been starting to roll out some of the budget priorities that we're going to have. I'm going to release the full budget probably the beginning of December, but in the meantime, we're highlighting some of the key components as those components are completed. And so the entire budget's not fully complete, it's almost complete, but we were able to roll out earlier last week the education budget. See strong support for boosting teacher pay. We're going to do another round of bonuses for principals and teachers. We have money in there to end the FSA and do progress monitoring, and also have a lot of other great stuff for a lot of the progress that's been made. So we were excited to make those announcements. And then today here, we're excited to be able to make announcements for, what really is, I would say, historic support for Florida's environment, our Everglades restoration, support of our water resources. And part of this would not be possible if the state had not been open this whole time. We've been able to do very well economically. We have folks, obviously a lot of people want to move here. We have people visiting here. We actually did better in August of 2021 than August of 2019 for hotel revenue. You have a lot of great stuff going on. So that has put us in a really strong budget position. We have very healthy budget reserves, and a lot of people were predicting doom and gloom a year and a half ago, and in reality, we've been able to defy expectations. We haven't received the report state by state for the October job numbers yet, but for September, you had 194,000 jobs nationwide created. Florida was 84,500 of those jobs. And so we had more jobs created nationwide. We obviously expect Florida to have been able to add more jobs going forward. So we've been able to keep the budget in great shape and actually even improve it. And that's really allowed us to be able to be here today to announce a really robust plan for our budget priorities for environment and natural resources. And so I had said when I first became governor, said we are going to do $2.5 billion over 4 years for Everglades restoration, support for water resources, and clean water. And that was $1 billion more than the previous 4 years. So a lot of people were happy when we announced that, but they said, to get that much more money is probably not something that's going to be feasible. And so I kind of gave points for vision, but doubted that was going to be able to come to fruition. I'm proud to be able to report not only are we on target to meet that, we're on target to far surpass that. Not only are we going to have $2.5 billion have been done over these 4 years once the next budget goes in, we may even hit $3 billion for that. And so that will be double what had been done the previous 4 years before I took office. And so that shows the extent of the commitment, shows the extent of what we're doing. So our budget priorities this year, we will have more than $660 million for Everglades restoration projects. We'll have $300 million for the protection of water resources. And again, that will far surpass our goal of $2.5 billion over 4 years. We're also going to continue to support money for targeted water quality improvements, alternative water supply, $40 million for that grant program. We're going to have $50 million for projects to restore Florida's springs. We've made a lot of great progress on that. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to up the amount of money that goes in for python removal in the Everglades. We have people that come, they want to hunt these things. We've made a lot of progress, but there's a lot of these pythons there. They're not easy to find. We'll also put some of this money, if there's new gizmos that come out that can identify these pythons easier. I know they've used drones or whatever. If there's anything else, we want to do that. We want to make sure that we're getting these pythons out of there. And then we're going to have $35 million to combat harmful algal blooms, including blue-green algae as well as red tide. So we're going to have $15 million set aside for innovative technologies. And so you see, like Lake Okeechobee, 5 years ago, there would have been nothing that they would have done. Now we actually have people in there treating the algae. When some of the algae, when they had releases into the Caloosahatchee, and you'd see some of this in different parts, you'd have people go in there and treat it and they'd actually be able to make really good progress. I think we can even do more as the technology develops. Same with the Red Tide. We have money going for the Moat Marine. They're doing all kinds of research into ways to mitigate red tide. That's obviously naturally occurring, but if we could mitigate the effect, that's going to be huge. Same thing with our Center for Red Tide Research with Florida Fish and Wildlife. So we're continuing to do that, and the $35 million is more money that's ever been dedicated to combating harmful algal blooms in the state of Florida. So we're really, really excited about that. And if you think about all the Everglades that we've done, since I took office, 37 Everglades restoration projects have either broken ground, hit a major milestone, or have been completed. And that's starting the EAA Reservoir Project stormwater treatment area ahead of schedule, which we were happy to do. Obviously we need the federal government to pick up and be there for us, but we're going full speed ahead on that. Starting the final phase of construction of the C-43 reservoir, which is very important, completing the C-44 reservoir and stormwater treatment area, and removing the old Tamiami Trail roadbed 6 months ahead of schedule. So moving these projects forward is essential. What we want is we want to reduce harmful discharges to the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee estuaries. We want the water to flow south to the Everglades and Florida Bay. And on top of those investments, we've also dedicated record funding for water quality improvements across the state, as I mentioned. So this is something that's really, really significant. It's making a difference. Some of the water quality things that we're doing, we have $125 million for wastewater grant program, which provides grants to improve infrastructure in the BMAP areas. We were able to announce a lot of that very, very recently. And then we're continuing to do things, as I mentioned, on springs restoration and some of the other key things that we're looking to do. We're also, last year, we established for the first time a program called Resilient Florida, which was really looking to invest in infrastructure projects that would help make Florida more resilient against storms, against flooding, against some of the problems that we have as a storm-prone and disaster-prone state. So we did last year about $630 million into Resilient Florida. We haven't given those grants because we just got all the applications. I think, when was that deadline? Was that a couple months ago? Yeah, September. So we have that. So we're going through all that. But we're happy to say that we're going to do another $550 million to help support resiliencies of our coastal communities, and that includes $50 million for planning and coral reef protection, which we're happy about. But that will end up being over $1 billion that you're going to be able to use, and I think that will make us more able to handle some extreme weather events, helps handle flooding, all these other things that I think are really, really important. And the money, so this is big seed money. This also includes, we have recurring money that is now in statute that will say it's 100, what is it, Sean, 120, 130 million, somewhere around? Yep, around there every year automatically. So this is something that's good. The local communities, they're going to have to put up some money, and we'll likely match what they're doing. And so this way, the places that need it the most, they make the commitment, we can come in and we can get these projects done. But this wasn't even on anybody's radar 4 years ago. And we've been able to make it happen, and I think we're really leading on that in really important ways. So there's so many times where people will campaign for office or get in office and they'll say all these things, and then they never follow through on it. And I think that's we see that all the time. And when I ran, I said, we're going to make this a priority. When I got into office, I outlined a bold vision. We set the targets very, very high. And I'm pleased to say, with our recommendations, and as we work with the legislature in next year's legislative session, we will not only have kept the promises and met the standards that we set, we will have exceeded what we promised to do. And so that's something that we're really proud of. And I know a lot of folks have been very, very pleased to see a really consistent focus on making sure that we're protecting Florida's natural resources, improving our water quality, restoring things like the Everglades. And so this has been great momentum over the last almost 3 years, and we're carrying this momentum into the 2022 legislative session. And I think that you're going to see great support across the board for the initiatives that we've outlined. Happy to be here. Happy to have so many folks here that are doing. We're going to call up a few folks, have them make some comments as well. So we have Sean Hamilton, Secretary of DEP.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Governor. It's great to be here to celebrate this historic recommendation. And again, I know my predecessor's behind me, but I don't know if I could pick a better time to be Secretary. When you think about, here sharing this exciting news about this commitment. And as the governor stated, over the past 3 years, just the commitment alone to the focus on the environment, understanding that our environment and our economy are inextricably linked. There is no degree of separation there. And just so having that commitment, that, year in and year out, that predictable funding, that dedication to science and focus, again, I can't think of a better time, like I said, to be a part of this agency. But as the governor stated, his first day in office, again, he made it clear the environment would be at the forefront of his administration going forward, not just like he said in the announcement, but also as a policy, as a foundation, as something to make each and every decision off of. And again, like I said, we at DEP are very appreciative of understanding that identity and understanding that focus. It makes our mission a lot more manageable, but also it makes the rewards that we're able to offer to the citizens of our state that much more greater. This is an amazing location. Just a kind of a little bit of history here. This site sits in Collier County, of course, but a little known fact, Collier County is larger than the state of Delaware. And again, no offense to anybody from Delaware, but if you think about this particular reserve, it manages over 40% of that coastline. And the reason I bring that up, that is an amazing endeavor as you think about everything that goes there. But it's also a testament to the partnerships that have established down here. If you think about the science foundations, our local government entities, academia, all of those partners come together to make for an amazing facility. But it's those type partnerships will be necessary to carry us into the future. We're going to couple that, of course, with this great funding. But again, I just like to thank our host here and just acknowledge the great job you do here. I just want to hit on something the governor mentioned about the application portal for Resilient Florida. We received over 581 applications for $2.3 billion in projects. Again, as you can see, the task is large, but it's this type of funding and prioritization that makes that manageable and something within vision and within reach. And so this historic funding of $550 million will help us work with local communities to ensure they are prepared for the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise, intensified storms, inland flooding, but also help those communities prepare and make sure they've got good plans to identify key assets and critical infrastructure as they plan for sea level rise and climate impacts. So, Governor, again, thank you for your commitment to the environment. We look forward to working with the governor and the legislature in this upcoming session as we work to do more to protect Florida's environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Dr. Mark Rains, Chief Science Officer.
Well, good morning. So when Governor DeSantis took office back in January of 2019, he signed very quickly Executive Order 1912, achieving more now for Florida's environment. For those of us that have been involved in it, the now, I think, was what we'd emphasize. It made clear that the environment is a foundation of so much in Florida, from the economy all the way down to our very way of life. Under his leadership, we've seen, as he pointed out, that these were not just words or empty promises. They're actually a commitment to a course of action. We face a lot of environmental challenges here in Florida, but we are a low-lying state. We're surrounded on three sides by oceans, and so perhaps none are more pressing than sea level rise and recurrent coastal flooding and building more resilient communities for our future. These challenges are complicated, and the solutions are both complicated and difficult to implement. But under his continued leadership, we're taking these things head on. I think Senate Bill 1954 laid out a pretty clear pathway for us. We're now working closely with our many partners, including the newly established Flood Hub at the University of South Florida, We're working on a science-based statewide data set, vulnerability data set, that will underlie a statewide vulnerability assessment, including assessment of crucial and vulnerable coastal infrastructure. And all of that will then underlie a vulnerability plan, which will be updated annually, delivered to the governor's desk for action. And none of that happens, though, without continued leadership and secure funding. And so now, with secure long-term funding, the governor continuing to advocate for additional funding as necessary and appropriate and available, I think we're in a great position now to fully realize that resiliency plan. And so I want to close by thanking the governor for his continued leadership on this crucial matter, and for the opportunity to work alongside him and the legislature and all of you as we build a more resilient future together.
Okay, Daniel Andrews, Captains for Clean Water.
Thank you, Governor. It's exciting to be here today on the announcement of this historic funding for Everglades restoration. It was less than 3 years ago that all this really kicked off, and we've seen this money that the governor is spending on Everglades restoration. It's not only is it record, but it's also directed exactly where it's needed. And I think that's something that we hadn't really seen in the past. Now we're going and putting this money towards projects that really give us the highest ROI, that are going to stop the discharges and get more water flowing south. And that's really incredible. This is, we often talk about this as a Florida issue, but this is a national issue. The Everglades is a national treasure, and you've got, every sportsman and woman across the country is looking at this, and it's on everybody's bucket list to come down to the Everglades, to enjoy this habitat, to fish, to hunt, to just get out there and experience it, whatever that is. So this is something that, the whole country's behind this movement, and we're seeing more and more people get involved every day because of Governor DeSantis' leadership on this. Now, today is not a monumental day solely because of this, but we're also, I'd like to thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership with the Army Corps of Engineers on the new Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. If it wasn't for his leadership and coming in and making this a priority, we wouldn't be getting as good of a resolve as I believe we're going to get later on that today. So thank you very much for stepping in. I know the Corps can be kind of challenging at times, but when the state comes together and says, hey, we all want the same thing, we want balance, we want less discharges, we want more water flowing south, when we're together and the governor's leadership on that and having something to rally around is truly incredible, and I think today is really one of the most exciting days that we've had. We're going to hit this number. You've got people all around the country that are rooting for you on this one. We're going to have better operations. You're proving that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can build these projects, we can build the infrastructure, but we can also operate what we have better to really squeeze more out of this and give us the result that we all deserve as Floridians and as Americans who want to enjoy this. So today's a great day, and we're looking forward to bringing this to the finish line.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And I think he brings up a good point about the Army Corps. Of course, we don't control Lake Okeechobee. Those discharges are done federally, but we've worked very closely from the time I became governor, working with the Trump administration to say, we can't just be spewing this into these coastal communities. It creates huge problems. And so let's have some balance. Let's try to keep that lake a little lower going into the rainy season. And I think the result was, over the last 3 summers, we have less discharges than we had, it's 2016 and 18 especially. And so that was always part of this. These projects, we'll do them, they're ahead of schedule even, but it doesn't just happen overnight. And so if you can manage the lake differently and make adjustments so that we're minimizing that while we're bringing this stuff online, that's really the win-win. So I hopefully we get a good result on that is balanced and that takes into account all the different priorities that we have. But we'll keep pushing forward on what we're doing here. I think that the results have been good so far, but we got to keep going. We were not at the finish line yet, so we're going to do, but we've got great momentum, and it's really exciting to see so many people come together to support these great initiatives. So we'll be pushing hard for this when we get into January. for the session, and I reckon that we're probably going to be met with a lot of folks that are happy to support this. Thank you. Happy to take a couple questions.
Have you been in contact with the Army for any idea of what they're going to say today about the LOSOF plan?
So, I don't know for sure. I mean, I have spoken with the Corps over the course of this, and basically just reiterating what Daniel Andrews said, and that what we've been always saying about the need to reduce harmful discharges into the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie estuaries. That's been, and move more water south. I've also told the South Florida Water Management District, get as much south as you can. And I don't know, I mean, you guys do much more. You send much more water. They send much more water south. So I think if we can get something that's balanced, that folks, particularly on the coast, are happy with, I think that's going to be a really, really good thing. I don't want to prejudge it because I just don't know what's going to end up happening. But I think we have a pathway to where you manage the lake a little bit differently. The infrastructure gets brought online, and eventually we'll be in a situation, we'll have so much infrastructure and so much water going south that things like these discharges that we're so concerned about, those will hopefully just fade into the background, but we're not there yet, and that's why the management of this going forward in the short term is so important.
Governor, the State House and Senate are close to sending you a bill to begin the process of replacing OSHA in Florida. How do you respond to critics that say that this is a political stunt and would not eliminate vaccine mandates at all?
Well, first of all, I think there are two different issues. There's a lot of states that don't do OSHA that they've done. So it's not like, Florida, I think we may be a majority of the states, but there's a lot of states that are not in OSHA. And I think it's an appropriate response given how heavy-handed OSHA is being. These agencies, when they're doing things, you expect that this is being done in some factual basis. But if you read that OSHA rule, it's ignorance running amok. They don't recognize core scientific facts like immunity conferred through prior infection. They explicitly say that somebody that's recovered from COVID does not have protection when we know that's not true. Israel did an exhaustive study. The Cleveland Clinic has done studies showing that those folks do indeed have protection. And so if you are concerned about workplace safety, you would acknowledge that and not try to have someone fired from their job, over the shots. But at the end of the day, when an agency comes in and is threatening to kick people out of work in the midst of an economy that needs more people in these key industries, mind you, because the fallout from COVID, even though Florida, we're back to pre-COVID unemployment policies, you got to search for work, your time, all that stuff. And there's hundreds of thousands of jobs available in Florida, even though we're there. And yes, we've done better than some other states who have different policies. But, you still don't have everyone back in like we would want. And so they're threatening to basically cause truckers to be fired, other key people in logistics and operations that are so key to the supply chain. Why you would do that, I don't know. But I think that rule, it's 500 pages of a bureaucracy run amok. And so if that's the case and the legislature wants us to go in a different direction, I think that that's appropriate response. The most important thing, though, in this special session is to make sure that no one is losing their jobs over these shots, okay? We have firefighters, cops, people that work in all kinds of industries for private businesses that have been working this entire time. Many of them, as I mentioned, already have immunity through prior infection. And so the bottom line is this is not something that should be coerced onto people. And that's been our position from day one, available for all, mandatory for none. But I never thought we'd get to the point in this country where people were going to be denied an ability to earn a living potentially based on a COVID shot. That's just not the way to do it. So we're going to have substantive protections. The legislature is going to provide substantive protections. Yes, it will push back on OSHA, but it will also say if a private corporation is trying to do this on their own, hold on a minute, we don't want people to be discriminated against on the basis of that. So if we're able to get that done, then that'll be a very good thing. There'll be some other good stuff, I think, that's in there, but that's the core issue right now. I don't want to see Floridians lose their jobs. I want Floridians to be able to earn a living, provide for their families. We need more of that, not less of that.
Governor DeSantis, as we're waiting for the Corps to announce their final optimized What has been your overall impression of this process? I know it's been a lengthy one.
It's an interesting process. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of different moving parts, and as Daniel Andrews mentioned, the Corps has a unique culture. They have a unique way of doing things. They're great people, but it's a bureaucracy. And it's a more cumbersome bureaucracy than even other elements of the military and other elements of the federal government. And in fact, I remember the first time when I met with President Trump about this issue, and I said, look, we need some help on Lake Okeechobee, and I was explaining to him, very receptive, and I was like, but the problem is, the Army Corps is discharging it, and he's like, oh my gosh, the Corps, they're so heavy, because it's like it's difficult just because of their processes. So with all that said, though, I think that I think the Corps was receptive to a lot of the concerns on the community. I think they've made a good faith effort to work through these issues. And so at the end of the day, if we can get a way forward that's going to respect, all the different stakeholders and try to strike an appropriate balance, then that'll be fine. I wish some of this stuff were a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, we just want a good path forward for everybody. We want our, obviously we don't want to see Lake Okeechobee flood those nearby communities, which is the reason they discharge water. I mean, we want to protect those folks, of course, but we also want to protect our estuaries and protect our coastal communities from having, you look, when you have these blooms, that hurts the fishermen, it hurts the hotels, the restaurants, it hurts everything, and it has a huge impact. And so when I became governor, it was on the heels of the 2018 summer, which was a really, really bad summer. I came in, we did this, the Corps did change. We had virtually no discharges in 2019 pretty much. And things were so much better. And I know there's other factors. It's not just the discharges, but I believe that the discharges, cause problems, and then they can exacerbate other problems. So if we can get to a point where that is being minimized in the summer season, man, we're going to be in such good shape. But the last 3 years have been done so much better than had been done previously. I do want to acknowledge that, and hopefully we can keep that going forward. We are putting our money where our mouth is, though. Yes, we don't control the lake. It's the Corps. We're working with the Corps on all that, but we're also building the types of infrastructure where these discharges, hopefully will not even be necessary in the future, as we have we're basically re-engineering Florida's plumbing so that the water's flowing where it should flow. And that's going to be great, I think, for all involved. So thanks, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. We're really excited about these announcements.
Yet another plank taken away from the left. This is something that the left is seeing, but not a lot of people on the right are seeing. What Governor DeSantis is doing is an incredibly intelligent strategy. He doesn't go around the state talking about the priorities of the right wing or Trump priorities or anything like that. Because there's a lot of negative things to bitch about, and as you can see in the comment section, no matter how much sunshine or green trees or blue skies or palm trees or positive information, somebody will figure out a way to find something negative to bitch about. It's every morning when I do these lives, I'm like, I wonder what they're going to try to gin up to bitch about today. With all the positive news, this is literally who remembers the song Seminole Wind? Who remembers the song Seminole Wind? This is what the song was about. Ever since the days of old, men have searched for wealth untold. They dig for silver and for gold and leave the empty holes. Progress came and took its toll. And in the name of flood control, they made their plans and they drained the land. Now the glades are going dry. It was a huge project in Florida. A huge progress, a boondoggle from Democrats that were in charge in Florida a long time ago because they wanted to stop flooding in certain areas. And they drained the Everglades, and it destroyed all of the natural wildlife. And once they realized what they had done, the big Tamiami Road, they realized, holy crap. And then Republicans took over, and they tried to drain Okeechobee, and they restored the Glades back to it's in the process of being restored back to its natural state. And the governor has put his foot on the accelerator for this. This is a huge, it's probably the largest environmental project in the entire country. It's been going on for decades and decades and decades. Bingo, Enrico. Government is taking away the eco platform from the left while protecting our land and water. Bingo. Disney had nothing to do with it. It started long before Walt Disney was a kid. Walt Disney himself was a child when this was all formulated. A lot of people like to find anything they can to blame Disney, and once again, somebody else trying to find something negative to say. And it's the reason the right loses. I'm just going to say this right now to all of you out there. It's the reason the right loses. Because no matter what, no matter how many good things happen, no matter how many positive things happen, they continue to dig up negative things to talk about. And it's off-putting. It is, people don't realize how off-putting it is. Nobody wants to hear about FEMA conspiracy theories. Nobody wants to hear about, oh, Disney is, a satanic cult or all this bullshit. When you do stuff like that, everything else you said that made sense goes in one ear, out the other. Every time. Just know that. And that's, I think, one of the reasons people don't like Florida is because people down here are smiling and happy and, positive all the time. It's not that bad things don't happen. We just don't dwell on it. And we don't, make it the impetus that drives us. That's a very Midwestern thing. For those of you who don't know, that's a very, very Midwestern value. I can almost tell where somebody's from by what they bitch about. And I don't mean to get this off on some kind of a preachy thing, but it affects YouTube. It affects this platform. Somebody said, are you going to get on Telegram? I'm like, no, it's just a giant bitch fest. Do you remember that even when the last guy became president, 2016 to 2020, the right was still bitching? The right was still whining the entire time? And when something got fixed, they found something else to whine about. Yesterday I had to do a live event, a video, and what else? I had a smaller video. I had to do 4 different things yesterday to literally keep the view rates up, because YouTube pushes positive things and turns the volume down on negative things. Let me say this again. YouTube pushes positive things and turns the volume down on negative things. See, like Guyana Sun. See? Perfect example. Here's an entire paragraph trying to cook up some conspiracy theory about Masters, Mastar delivered an order to it, blah, 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 blah. My God, people, wake up. And realize the reason nobody wants to be around you, the reason nobody likes you, the reason nobody listens to you, and the reason you see people with many more followers than you do is not because they don't like conservatism. It's because it's negative. It's all negative all the time. So I've tried to make this channel do these lives with the governor in the morning to start off your day with something positive and something good and something uplifting and something to, share and be happy about. Life will never be perfect, guys. We're very, very blessed in Florida. Incredibly blessed in Florida. to have, sunshine year round, and, we have access to the ocean, and, we have clean streets, and we have great governors. But I mean, that took work. That took work. See, the reason Georgia has Brian Kemp is because the only thing they wanted to be bothered to listen about is, as long as this guy says all the right things, we're not going to think about it too much. And I think it's why they love Trump, is because he used Twitter to nonstop bitch. And speaking about Twitter and Trump, let me ask you a question. Donald Trump Jr. has said, recently, he said a lot of times, I could sure go for some cheap gas and some mean tweets about now. Did Donald Trump ever nice tweet about anything ever? Ever one time when he was on the platform? Did he ever nice tweet about anything? You see, when somebody is continually mean tweeting and then other people are getting off on it and laughing about it, that's a problem. That's a problem. You know what, Guy and a Son, if that's what you're going to focus on, you probably shouldn't even be here. Who are the masters of the universe? Who is controlling me? Oh, poor little me. Oh, the great controllers of all things. And like these idiots that say that the government sends hurricanes to Florida. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, if you're the type that gets off on other people treating other people mean, you're a Democrat. You're a liberal. So if you enjoyed Trump's mean tweets, you're just a Democrat and liberal pretending to be a Christian or a conservative. I'm just going to say it right now. That's exactly what you are. You're a Democrat. You're a liberal. You just don't know it yet. You're just espousing a different belief system. But if that's what you enjoy, if Donald Trump will be tweeting mean things about Hillary Clinton or mean things about Nancy Pelosi or nasty things about Joe Biden, if that's what gets you off, if that's what makes you happy, if you smile and you laugh and you think that's great. Most disgusting thing I ever saw this week, who's ever heard of John Hagee? Who's ever heard of Pastor John Hagee? They were chanting, "Let's go Brandon," in a church, at a church meeting. Now, if you want to have fun and you want to make your little chants, that's fine. But that it is gone, it's ridiculous at this point. It is ridiculous at this point that man could hold a Bible in one hand and let the word Trump come out of his mouth. That man could hold a Bible in a hand and talk about being some child of God and have the word TRUMP come out of his mouth, and anything other than total condemnation is vomitous. Absolutely, totally vomitous. So Christians, need to check yourself. You also have to wonder about a man who preaches from a pulpit who can't even control the amount of food that goes on his spoon, because nobody gets to be his size because of some medical problem. You see that gate smasher thing? But there'll always going to be those that do, and that's why we should turn them down and turn them off. And I'm going to say this again. YouTube, Google, turns up things that are positive, that are happy, that are things that are of good. What does the Bible say about that? Things that are of good report. Anything that is holy, anything that's pure, anything that's, I'm paraphrasing here. Think on these things. Oh, I should have had that brought up. That's scripture. Whatever is pure, whatever is of good report, whatever is Acapeldrich actually names all of his albums after that scripture. All of these things. Can you say that your militia meeting or your right-wing group, when they get together, that they're in their minds pondering good things, positive things, uplifting things, things that would make people go through their day? You see, exactly right, Enrico. Notice that Governor DeSantis comes out every day with a positive announcement for Floridians that has real impact on those that live here. It's so simple. What did Trump do? Every morning he tweeted something that made people angry and caused division. And people make this allegation, boy, I sure hope Governor DeSantis doesn't become Trump's vice president. I'm like, I literally want to throw up when I hear that. I literally want to throw up when I hear that kind of stuff. So you don't have to be in Trump's camp. Neither do you have to be in the Lincoln Project's camp to still be for what's right. Let me say this again. There's Trump and his group, and then there's the Lincoln Project that doesn't like him, and then there's the rest of us that don't like either one of them. Enter into a great scripture. Truth is treason. God said to enter into his courts with praise and thanksgiving, not whining and bitching and moaning and conspiracy theories. Seriously. It's a sad thing, and I say this in love to pull people out of this. Be of good cheer. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So who are we going to be? Who are we going to be? I mean, even if Thanksgiving is expensive, that's a good point, Island Truther. Even if Thanksgiving is expensive, be thankful you can afford it. If you have loved ones you can share it with. Okay, so your bank account's a little lighter. Maybe you've got to get a little smaller turkey. Maybe you trim this over here and trim that over there. But that's kind of what the first Thanksgiving was really all about. That's kind of what the first Thanksgiving was all about. And strange, funny story, that Governor DeSantis got his J&J vaccination a year ago. And he's still touring Florida. And he's not kicking over dead. Isn't that funny? Isn't that strange? The governor, the man you just saw speak. So, to say something is all one thing or all the other, I'm just reading through here. No, I'm talking about Murph, I'm talking about the original Thanksgiving, not the make-believe one the Pilgrims had. I'm talking about the one that occurred in Florida at St. Augustine 100 years almost before the Pilgrims. The one we're going to be talking about. The actual first Thanksgiving dinner where they came and they claimed the land in the name of God. Okay. Somebody just got themselves a hide. You know, and some people say, well, Florida, then why do you start your morning like this dealing with negative people? Well, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. We have a great many things to be thankful for still. We really do. And sometimes, you know, I hate to say this, sometimes it takes loss. Sometimes it takes loss to understand what you still have. Sometimes it takes going through some things you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy to really understand what God has placed in front of you, what God has given you, the opportunities. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we think would have been, and that's a good point. And I'll leave with it. This whole thing with Biden in office. You know what it caused people to do on the right? Well, if Trump would have, then this would have happened. If Trump, then that would have happened. If Trump, this would be better. If Trump, that would be better. You see, that's predicting the future. That's making some kind of an allegation of, because you guarantee any of this bad shit would have happened. The supply chain hiccups around the world, all this kind of stuff, the inflation, you would have blamed it on the deep state. If Trump would have been in office, you would have blamed it on the deep state. But what's really important here is this. Anybody who says, well, if this was the case, then that would have been this whole thing, if you want to read the future with different circumstances, is exactly what the left is doing with the vaccination. You see, they're saying, well, if these people over here would have been vaccinated, then these other people here wouldn't have gotten sick. It's this whole if-then thing. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, every day would be Christmas. You see, it's not acknowledging, Cindy. Nobody's acknowledging anything. No matter how many things get fixed, like in Florida, no matter how many positive things, Cindy DeLay says, oh, McKee, we can be uplifting and positive while still acknowledging the realities that suck and finding solutions for those sucky parts that make a positive impact. Okay, when you literally, if you go to one of these things and you watch all the positive things happening in Florida and your mind still goes, well, gosh, what else still sucks? If that's what your mind does, you need to fix your brain. You need to fix your brain. If that's how you react every time something good happens. So, okay, if people would stop playing the blame game and focus on making each day better for their community, things would come together. For their community, bingo. For their local community. I only worry about Flagler. Honestly. Me personally, in my personal life outside of YouTube, the only thing I give a damn about is Flagler County, Florida. YouTube is a different thing. YouTube is a different animal. YouTube is my job. Here I have the ability to talk to people in England and New Zealand. And by the way, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. If you want to fix things, see, if it was up to me, if I became president, you know what my first thing I would do would be? I would shut off Facebook. I would shut off Twitter. I would shut off YouTube. Well, you see, YouTube's different. I don't know if people can see the difference between Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. YouTube is just videos. I would highly rein in all the political nonsense. And I would make virtually all television local, so that Floridians saw things on television and discussed things that had to do with Florida. And people in Texas, the only things that they would engage on were things that had to do with Texas specifically. Anything not having to do with Texas or going on in California or going on in New York is irrelevant. Oh, big time. You see, Ragnar, if you don't learn to say no in your life, if you don't learn to censor people in your life is going to be a nightmare. Your life is going to be a nightmare. This country was designed to be governed and run at the state level, no higher. The whole idea of a federal government was looked at very negatively. Well, that's exactly what you're doing, are you not, Ragnar? I don't have to censor others to know how to turn YouTube off. That's exactly what you're doing. You're censoring. Those people had a right to tell you what they felt, and you turned them off. You censored them. And if you have kids, Ragnar, have you ever had kids? If you have kids, guess what? You censor. You censor yourself, and you censor what comes into the home. You censor these people, okay. These kids over here, not okay. Nope, not here. And believe it or not, kids thrive with limits. Good fences make good neighbors. That's what every governor should be doing. Every governor should be laying down the law and saying, you know what? People of Tennessee, we're going to talk about and we're going to concern ourselves with the problems facing Tennessee. Period. If it's happening in Indiana, we don't give a damn. If it's happening in Indiana, we don't give a damn unless it directly affects Tennessee. Because the governor is our daddy, right? Okay, well, you know what? Here's the thing. If you want to go bring other problems to the state, yeah. If you want to go, like, for example, people in California coming to Georgia, telling them how to run their elections. If it had been me, I would have kicked them out. Like, no. Absolutely not. There are all sorts of liberals out in California with big money. You see, they want to export their culture to all these states. They want to export their culture to all these states. And if they send people with these actors and actresses who have all this influence and all these followers to go push this. You see, a governor is elected by the people of a state. This is what Nikki Fried doesn't get. This is what Nikki Fried doesn't get. This is what Charlie Crist doesn't get about what they're bitching about. All these Democrats wanting to try to take over Florida. Any of their agendas would be dead on arrival, even if they won. The State House is 2-1 conservative to Democrat in the State House. The Senate is a 60-40 majority, and the Supreme Court is all conservatives. It wouldn't matter if there was a Democrat governor. Their agenda would be dead on arrival. They would not get a single bill passed. They would have nothing done. It's not just a governor. And when that's the will of the people, yeah. You see, the internet was supposed to be a blessing, was it not? It wasn't supposed to be a tool for tyranny. But that's exactly what it's become, has it not? Because there's a human being. Oh, this is great. SoCal no more. SoCal no more. Oh, I'm wrong about everything. Really? Is that why I have 40? No, wait, let's go here. Hold on, back up. SoCal no more. Am I wrong about everything? Is that why I have 2,000 videos fully monetized on YouTube and 40 million views? Was I wrong about the Fitzgerald? Was I wrong about Trump being a piece of shit? Which is actually how I started my channel, by the way. Was I wrong about Venezuela defeating the U.S. over and over and over again with the coup attempts? Was I wrong about all that? Was I wrong about Governor DeSantis? So, yeah, you can suck it. And I mean that in full Florida, man. So, anyway, that was kind of fun. Sorry about that. So, I tell you what, back in the time with landlines and local TV, people minded their own business. Did they not? So, I don't know anything about, honestly, Port Manatee, Longboat Key, all that stuff over there. You see, that's the thing, even in Florida. That's the thing in Florida. Port Manatee's way over here. I'm up here. We mind our own business. We mind our own business and we take care of our backyards. I live here in Palm Coast and I care about, Flagler County. But really, I really care about maybe the 40 houses around me. So, if you still want to subscribe to the failed idea of Murica all being one thing, then you're destined for communism. You're destined for communism, and you will eventually become, if you're not now, a Democrat. If you like being controlled from the top down, whether it's by Trump or whether it's by anyone else, you're a Democrat. You just don't know it yet. If I became president, the first thing I would do is begin the process of divesting power away from Washington, D.C. and handing it back to governors. In fact, I would force governors to do it. I would force governors to start taking control of their states and take away and look, here's the check. Here's the money you sent to the federal government. Here's it back. You fix your problem, Nebraska. You fix your problem, Wyoming. You fix your problem, Oregon. It is what it is. And it's all about people. You see, things can be like Sid the Myth says, you can manipulate local TV all the same. Then it's your local people doing it. Then you can confront those local people. See, that's what makes local government great. See, when you have local government, you can confront those people. If you have some corrupt people get into power, you can find them at the grocery store. You can find them at the gas station. You know where their kids go to school. They're part of your community, and they don't affect communities 100 miles away. That's the case. Well, you see, you have a completely different value system over there, Sid the Myth. You have a completely different value system over there. You see, here in Florida, we don't have the values of Romanians. We have freedom. Yeah, and you're going to be because, people get the government they deserve. Exactly right. Control your county commissioners and the sheriff. You can have idiots everywhere else. So it's, and somebody's like, and here we go. Ask the folks in Cassadaga how that's working out for okay, the folks in Cassadaga, if they're too stupid to figure out their problems, the people can leave if they don't like the things there, or they can stay there and suffer. The announcement from DeSantis has to do with fixing the Glades, FileMaker. And for Florida, it's a really big deal. It's a huge deal. So, anyway, all right, so we got the Antarctica people coming out now, so it's time for me to shut up. So, that's basically the clue. Somebody says, talk about Antarctica. So, anyway, you guys have a great day. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys a little bit later.